Hey everyone, it's Deej and I'm back with another video on Meet Your Maker. Meet Your Maker has been out for a little while now and I'm going to share with you some of the tips I've learned while playing. So the first tip is that you can actually tell the size of the map that you're going to be playing on before you've even selected it. If you look at Wellersville here, you can see on the right of the name of the map there is a symbol, or three symbols rather. One block is coloured in black and the other two are greyed out. This is a small map. We go into dangerous. We can see here that there is one with two blocks. This is a medium-sized map. We go into brutal. This is a large map. Why is that important? A number of reasons. When you're going to claim your own burial site, you can tell which size map you're going to be buying or claiming by looking at the symbol that is on the top right. Now, each map itself, large maps do come in different various sizes, so you might need to look out. So you can see here a small map is capacity 750, a small map here is a capacity of 1,000. This Lynn Creek is a large map, but it has a capacity of 3,500, but you can get large maps that have a capacity of 4,500, obviously more expensive. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at claiming your own plot, because if you're thinking of having a long-term base, mass in size, large in size, you might want to go for the 4,500 capacity. Much like I have, if you look at mine here, all of mine are 4,500 minimum capacity because I want to kind of plan for the future and be able to build as big a base as I possibly can. So that is important when claiming bases, but also when raiding bases. When raiding bases, it's important to know what size map you're playing on because it actually tells you how many ancient vaults are going to be present on that map. So a small map will have one ancient vault. A medium-sized map will have two ancient vaults, and obviously on the larger size map, it will have three ancient vaults. And this also applies to yourself when you're building your map. If you're going to claim a build site, obviously ancient vaults are a good way of integrating secrets, traps, player interactions on your map. I quite like having all three to work with when I'm building some of my larger maps. But a little trick I learned is if you go into normal, you might find on normal sometimes that it actually has larger map sizes for what they are. And obviously normal isn't as troubling as the brutal maps for the most part. But if you can find a normal map with a large size, there are going to be three ancient vaults in that normal map. So it's not going to be that challenging to beat, you'd hope, but also you can reap the benefits of potentially having three ancient vaults. So keep an eye out for those when you're looking to run normal maps. Tip number two, and obviously I touched on it in the previous tip, is to always make sure you get the maximum capacity when claiming a new burial site. So obviously, as we saw before, capacity 750 here on a small map, capacity 1,000. I would always spend that little bit extra to buy the larger capacity maps because you have long-term efficiency. So if you're looking to expand your base into something massive long-term, or even if you're looking to have one of the smaller maps but have a lot of space to work with, always keep an eye out for the maximum capacity you can get for whatever size you are looking for. We're going to look at ancient vaults in a bit more detail. As I said before, depending on the map size, you will have a number of ancient vaults on your map. Include these in your build in any way you can. Now, what I usually do is include them along the path and include traps along them. Generally, you get a kill or two if people aren't paying attention, but also the player will always be rewarded for exploring around your map versus just getting straight to the gen mat and finishing the map. You can see here with this map here, I've actually clearly outlined where the ancient vaults are. And it's one thing I like to do is find out where they are when I buy a new map. You can see here I've put a trap just underneath here. The first time around it might get them, second time around it won't. And one thing I would avoid doing is putting lava underneath, because if they break the vault, you don't want them to miss out on getting the loot, because they're not going to risk jumping into lava to collect, some resources that potentially they have an abundance of already. So just be fair with it, be challenging. You can create some paths through to challenge the player, maybe get a few kills along the way. But ultimately, I would always suggest including all ancient falls in your map in some way. I've been a bit lazy with this one, but I do like to include them along the path. Next tip here is going to be looking at the second wave mechanic. So I can't stress how important the second wave mechanic is, and most of you with successful prestige bases will know that second wave is your best friend. So obviously challenging the player to get to the gen mat in some way by putting traps around is important, but the best position you'll be in as a base builder is after they've picked up the gen mat, because you can set them up for failure in a sense. You can see here I've got this sort of trap room here with enemies spawning in after the fact, and how I've done that is I've put a holocube that starts on the second wave, so these troops here will only enter on the second wave. So they'll come here, they'll activate that wall and drop in and engage in combat, but they won't do it on the first wave, because I find with enemies, when you're not sort of trapped in a corner, you can just move back, you can hide, you can shoot from here, you can go all the way back if you need to kind of pull them out to the entrance and kill them that way. It's very, very easy. But if you're just in a position like this, and you've just picked up the gen mat, and all these enemies are spawning, it's a lot more challenging. So I've done a few of these sort of second wave shenanigans here with some of the enemies spawning in later, and also traps in this room as well to try and catch out the raider. Again, very important to use the second wave. This is sort of a very literal base. You know, there's barely anything on the way in, and everything kind of kicks off after you pick up the gen mat, and I'll show you that quickly here. So I'm going to test from here. And obviously you don't want to make this impossible, because people just quit, but you give the people, the raiders, a chance at least to get through somehow. Make it challenging, make it enjoyable, make it fun. That's what I try and do with my maps. But just keep that in mind, that second wave is a very, very powerful tool, and you'll see why here. So we're just in this room. As a raider, you'd enter, there's not much going on, and you're going to go down around here. Got lava traps down there to stop people from jumping down. You've got this trap, oh, that's fine. It obviously with these walls, they do look extremely fishy. It's quite obvious what they are. So I'm going to open this up, and you can see here that what will happen is these enemies will spawn, activate the wall, the raider will die. And then I now have to escape. I can't just back off. I have to escape. There's enemies spawning. Obviously, my traps are killing the other enemies, but I'm kind of in a tough spot. I've just died again. The one thing about these traps here, the reusable traps are fantastic. I'm going to go back to the building menu here, but the reusable traps are fantastic because it's sort of like meta to just walk like this and let the traps all activate. With the reusable traps, it can be a bit more challenging to adapt. Obviously, one of the ways to get past these kind of situations is just to run as quick as you can once you collect the gen mat. And then obviously you can put some traps to try and catch those kind of players out. At the very end here, I've run out of capacity, but you'd hope that it would catch out some players. But I find that when you're using actual minions or troops, people like the enjoyment of it's kind of satisfying when you're able to clear an entire room of 20 troops and pick up all the resources from them as well. So keep in mind, wave number 2, put some thought in it. The next and final tip for this video is that you can actually use boosts to increase the yield within your bases. When you're going to pick up, if you've got a number of bases, all 5 active, and you've got multiple kills, you can actually activate boosts. As you can see here, increased synthite drop rate in raiding and buildings by 29%. So if you activate these, move into the buildings, you can actually collect far more drops from the killed raiders. You can see here, increased parts drop rate in raiding and buildings. So if I activate both those boosts, go in here, you may actually make a profit depending on how many kills you've gotten. So you can let your kills build up long term, and then go into the base, pick up all the items, and make a profit from that. I would obviously note that level matters. So having a higher level, advisor will yield a longer boost or better boost. But it's just something to be mindful of. If you have a number of bases that have got a number of kills overnight, it may be fruitful to activate a boost. So those are just a few tips on things I've learned during my time playing Meet Your Maker. I'll be doing plenty more videos like this going forward if anything else comes up. Obviously share your own tips in the comments below, and make sure you like and subscribe for plenty more Meet Your Maker content, as well as other videos across the spectrum of gaming. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.